the Panzer Arms M4. Let's check it out. Today we're going to take a look at the Panzer M4 12-gauge shotgun. This is a direct clone of the Benelli M4, which has been adopted by the U.S. Marine Corps. This is a semi-automatic 12-gauge shotgun, but they have the Argo gas system, and this allows for a piston-driven system that's self-cleaning, self-lubricating, and it's just very efficient and very smooth shooting. A lot of times for tactical applications, a pump is needed because it's just reliable. But with the Benelli system and the Argo gas pistons, this really makes this a very reliable option, and it makes it very fast to shoot. The Benelli M4 is pretty much legendary, and it's nice to see a more affordable option. And we want to thank Nate over at Gun Zone Deals for sending the Panzer M4 for this review. The Panzer Arms M4, it's a Turkish-made shotgun. Some call it the Turkinelli because it's a direct clone of the Benelli M4. The Benelli was introduced into the U.S. Marine Corps in 1998 and has been used very effectively, combat proven. It's used by a lot of law enforcement agencies. A lot of that has to do with the Argo piston gas system. And we'll talk a little bit more about that just to see how these pistons work. It makes it a very lightweight option as well, and it handles light loads all the way up to heavy loads. But the Panzer Arms M4 comes in about a quarter of the price of your Benelli M4. And really that's one of the big appeals of this shotgun. Now the Benelli M4 patents ran out, and that's the reason why we've seen quite a few of these hit the market, but it's been over the past couple of 3 years. There are some early things that were going on with the Panzer M4. I think they've fixed them with the new models, but we're going to check it out. I'm going to show you some areas to look for where there may be some lack of heat treating around the bolt and the piston system, and we'll check that out when we break it down. We've put about 250 rounds through it, and I'll just tell you up front, we have had zero malfunctions, whether it was field loads, buckshot, or slugs. First thing we're going to do is make sure the gun is safe. We're going to bring it back down the chamber, check the tube, and it's empty. And while we have it right here, this is a very smooth action. And honestly, it handles just like the Benelli M4. But guys, with the Benelli, there are some reasons why that the price is where it is. To say this is the same quality as the Benelli M4, there's a lot of processes that go into the Benelli that are going to be superior. Some of the manufacturing processes, some of the heat treating. But there have been a lot of good reports on the Panzer Arms M4. If I was in law enforcement or I was in the military, I would pick the Benelli hands down. But I've seen a lot of forums, guys talking about these going through 1,000-round torture tests and not having any issues with them. And I've seen a few where they did have some issues. Now starting out at the back of the stock, we have a skeletonized fixed stock. Benelli does make a collapsible stock that is skeletonized like this. But this is a fixed stock, but there is the bar that runs underneath this tube where you can add the Benelli collapsible stock version from what I understand. Really ample butt pad, about an inch thick, and then of course with the adjustable stock, this will move up and down to get your cheek weld better. It does have a knob here to tighten things up. And there are places for mounting a sling. And we have a QD port at the bottom. Nice rubber over mold grip, great for comfort. It has a really solid feel to it. And you'll see that the stock actually comes right up behind the trigger guard. We have a polymer trigger guard. We do have a bolt release here, and we do have our safety And of course on the other side it does show red when it's on fire. Of course, aluminum receiver, and we do have a titanium gray type finish on it. It's really a nice looking shotgun, contrasting with the black. Of course, the bolt handle can be switched out for any of your Benelli or aftermarket parts. It does have a pass-through in the receiver, so you can see the bolt, you can see the other side, but this allows this to be fully ambidextrous. And one feature I like about this charging handle is that we can pull it, we can bring it back, pull it out, and then you can put it on the other side. And now it allows your charging handle to go either from the right or the left. And that can be done with the gun just as it is. The ghost ring sights, they are adjustable. We also have a Picatinny rail that's drilled and tapped in the front. It does have a 3-dot sight system, and you have the white dots here. And again, I mean, this thing is protected with these ears, and you can adjust this for elevation or windage. Front sight's white dot, it is protected and it is raised off of the barrel. And this is also adjustable for windage. And we have a polymer forend. It is ribbed, so it gives you a lot of texturing. Now the forend is a 2-piece system, kind of like a clamshell, and it does lock in very similar to your AR-15 handguards. And then at the front we do have a sling swivel, and it does rotate about 10 degrees either way. Picatinny rail section with between the tube and the barrel, and this also has a Picatinny rail section on the other side. And this is easily removable. Of course, you have your tube cap. We have some styling with these ribs, but this is the 5-shot version. If you get the additional 2-round tube section, it is just solid all the way through. Action on the bolt, really smooth. I mean, it is just no grit. It glides really well, and we have knurling on either end. I really like this charging handle, but again, you can get oversized charging handles, makes it a little easier with your gross motor skills. Also, there is the bolt release here, and this comes when you're loading and unloading your shells. Have an 18.5-inch barrel, and when you disassemble this shotgun, this whole section comes right off, including the handguard. It does have removable chokes. This is in cylinder, but they do have other chokes included, and these should be compatible with your Benelli choke system as well. Panzer Arms made in Turkey with the crest, and it's just on the side of the receiver. It's 12 gauge and it goes up to 3-inch shells. And right here under your charging handle, you do have M4. Let's check the trigger pull action. Just a touch of take up, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, and then a really nice trigger. Reset right there, very quick. Let's check trigger pull weight with our Lyman trigger gauge. 5 pounds. 5 pounds. I mean, that is really consistent. All right, guys, we appreciate Fiocchi for sponsoring our ammunition. And we have our target loads, we have buckshot, we have some slugs, and we're going to be doing some testing later. Fiocchi does a huge line of ammunition for shotgun, and it's really great to have them on board. Now guys, with a hammer in the down position, just take your bolt, bring it back, and it'll lock it into the rear position, or when you're finished firing, and it holds open. Just drop 1 round into the chamber, and then just release this button right here, and that loads it. Now take your other loads, get under the loading gate, and just go ahead and put in your rounds into the tube. And now you're ready to fire, put on your safety. Guys, we're going to test out the target loads versus the buckshot, and we're doing 5 rounds each. That was target loads, now we're going to shoot buckshot. Guys, a little bit more in the shoulder, but as far as controllability with the muzzle, with the buckshot, it was flatter. It felt flatter. The sight stayed right on target. Same with the target loads, it was a little bit like when you're shooting a shotgun. But with those buckshot loads, it seemed to just really hone in. It's like this is made for buckshot. And since this is really a self-defense option, buckshot's gonna be what you want. As the wind blows across all of our microphones. Guys, we're going to do our standard test for slugs, buckshot, and then field loads. We've got a target standing about 10 yards off. We're going to step back to about 20 yards and we're going to compare the difference. And this is really mainly for your home defense option. So first we're going to go ahead and load in our slugs. and buckshot will be next, and then field loads. So we're putting our field loads in now, and then we're coming in with a buckshot. All right guys, here we go. Slug right here. Those ghost ring sights are excellent, and it really helps you get on target. Here is your buckshot. You have your wadding right here, and then with the pellets, again, 10 yards. Then we have the peppering of the target loads. Your wads here, and then of course all this. So just gives you an idea of what you're going to be hitting at 10 yards. All right guys, we're going to do it again. This time we've moved the target back 10 yards. So now we're at 20 yards back. We're going to see how these pattern. Let's check it out. All right, 20 yards. Slug, pretty much about the same area. Buckshot really spread. I mean, you can see all the pellets all the way through here. We didn't get the wadding. The target loads just cover this target. I mean, it's everywhere. So guys, if you're going with 20 yards, you can see what the pellets are going to do. And then the buckshot, I mean, it's really spreading out. The slug, you're going to be able to get 100 yard and plus accuracy with it. So that gives you a little bit of a longer range option. But as you can see, the buckshot, it's going to be all over the place. Okay, we're going to show you a field strip of the shotgun. First, we'll make sure the gun is clear. Next, we need to remove our Picatinny rails. Next, we're going to unscrew the end cap on the tube. And then we're just going to take this whole section off. Now you'll notice it does retain the tube, but this just fits over the tube. Now let's go ahead and remove our hand guards, and again, it's that clamshell. Next, go ahead and take your charging handle, just pull it out, and you want to hold on to this, and I'll show you why. Then the bolt just comes right out. Right here is your firing pin, retainer pin. You just need to take a little screwdriver, something flat, and you can just pull that out. You want to make sure though that you retain your firing pin, but here it comes, and we have the spring as well. Now we have our cam pin right here in the bolt, very AR-15 like. You can just turn this over typically and shake it, and the pin will fall out. And then we can just remove our bolt. Very well machined piece. This is very nice. Now this is the Argo piston system. You see it just shifts just a little bit, and this is really close to the chamber, so it keeps it really clean. It's self-lubricating, self-cleaning, and so it's one of the reasons why this is so reliable. Plus, it's a redundant system, so if one fails, the other one will still activate the bolt. But to take this thing apart, you use that charging handle, put it right here, and you just start turning. Definitely military type setup. And once you get this to a certain point, you can start to unscrew it. Once you get the threads past there, you just go ahead and start pulling out, and there is a little seal, a rubber seal that, or silicone seal, that's going to seal that up. And then you want to do the same with the other. Actually, this is pretty tight in here as far as even with your fingertips. And then we're just going to pull it out. Next, go ahead and push your rods or your pistons, and they'll just come right out. This is one area you want to keep clean, keep these going and functioning well, so just keep these maintained. Now to remove the trigger group, just push this pin through. Here on the other side there's a flat tip. It is retained. Now typically you pull down right here on your follower and you can pull this out. The big problem with this stock setup, and that's the same thing with the fixed stocks, is this doesn't come out without removing the stock. So really all you have to do is just take this, pull it out, and then you can get to your trigger group. We're not going to do that because we're just not going to pull the stock off. We're going to reassemble with our piston system. Go ahead and put those in first. Then we're going to come in with our caps. And again, you got to get it down to the threads. Tighten this up until you get to that stopping point. Now to reassemble your bolt, go ahead and put it in, and you want that extractor on this side, on the right side. And then we're going to take our little cam pin and we're going to drop it down into it. Next, we're going to take our firing pin, put the spring over the firing pin. You can see it's very AR-15 looking. Put it in the back. You want to depress your firing pin to make sure that the firing pin rotator pin gets in the right spot. It doesn't fit flush because it allows for a little bit of a screwdriver to get in there and pop it out. Now you want to check, make sure that it's working just by pressing your firing pin, and it's good to go. Now a couple of things to look at, because these were problems with the early Panzer IVs, is right here with your piston system. This flat surface, it should be nice and smooth, no deformations. What happened with some of the early models was some of the heat treating was off spec, and these actually had a little bit of deformation right here. So here we see that these are really nice. Again, we put about 250 rounds through it. And then right here on your bolt carrier, this is where the pistons impact. And here we see just some coloration difference. There's no deformation, there's no peening or anything like that. And this was also an issue, but these look really good. In fact, I talked to Robbie Wheaton about this, who has been a gunsmith for almost 30 years. And he said some of the early ones did have some issues. He goes, but it looks like they've taken care of a lot of that. But this is definitely very acceptable wear on this bolt carrier. And guys, that's all you need to do to field strip. Let's get our bolt and bolt carrier back in place. You want to make sure that tail stays up above your trigger group. Go ahead and take your charging handle, set it in, and then let's bring it back, and we're going to lock it open. Now we're going to bring the barrel and go over the magazine tube. Now before we set the barrel back into the receiver, let's go ahead and put on our hand guards. This may take a little bit of wiggling, then you want to get it just set, making sure they're lined up. Make sure your barrel goes over your tube. Then you want to make sure this is flush with the receiver. And now we're going to put that end cap on. Next, we're going to put on our Picatinny rail. You'll notice that one section is a little shorter, one comes around a little longer. The longer section goes toward the bottom. And it just mates up right here to this little area on your barrel or on your tube. Then just tighten that up. Go ahead and hit your bolt release. I'm just going to check for function. And we're good to go. One thing you'll notice is that this does not work or hold this open unless you pulled the trigger. And then when you pull it open, it'll lock into place. If you want to close it, hit that button. If you want to hold the bolt open without pulling the trigger, pull it back, hit this little lever right here, it locks it, and that way you don't have to pull a trigger in case you have a round in the chamber. And then to close it, there you go. And guys, a cleaning kit recommendation would be Otis Technology. They've been making cleaning kits for decades. And they are the official supplier for the U.S. military for their cleaning supplies. Also, their little tactical kit, which this is a cleaning kit that wraps up. You do have bore snakes or rip cords in here, and this is something the U.S. military carries in the field. So great little kits. Also, they own Shooter's Choice, and they have all the different bore solvents and CLP. So a great way to keep your firearms maintained, and we really appreciate Otis for being one of our channel sponsors. Okay, the Panzer Arms M4, these run $469 on Gun Zone deals. You do get the +2 tube extension for 2 additional rounds. It gives you a really great price for the M4 design. The Benelli M4 in this similar configuration runs $23.99. Typically I'm seeing them for around the $2,000 range. So this is a Benelli M4 copy, I mean all the way down to parts compatibility, for less than a quarter of the price. So pros and cons, that is the biggest pro, is that you're able to experience a Benelli M4 action that's exactly like your M4, except it's about a quarter of the price. Is it up to the quality of the Benelli? No. Benelli, there's a lot of things that they're doing with their heat treating and their processes. It's a really exceptional shotgun. In fact, it's one of the best shotguns on the market as far as a combat shotgun. I mean, there's just a lot of pros to it, but a lot of those pros translate into the Panzer IV. For me, if I was in law enforcement or if I was in the military, I would want a Benelli M4. It just gives me more confidence. But yet, this shotgun, and from what I've seen, especially the late models, the early models, they had a little bit of heat treating, but the ones they're putting out now, they have really fixed and addressed all those issues with these shotguns. And I'm seeing a lot of good results. If you do have an older one with some pinging on the pistons or the bolt carrier, you can get Benelli parts, or you could actually send this back to Panzer Arms and they would be able to give you current, up-to-date, correctly heat-treated parts. I think one benefit would be if I had a Benelli M4 and I wanted some parts, maybe some minor parts, I could get them from Panzer Arms and they would be much cheaper, because a lot of times the Benelli accessories are more expensive. One thing about this particular shotgun is the skeletonized stock is not the same as it is on the Benelli. The Benelli definitely, it comes up, it collapses down. It's a really cool system. This is just more of a cheek piece with a fixed stock. I did find, as far as the con goes, that this is not necessarily always where I want my cheek, but honestly, at range day, it was fine. I mean, we were able to shoot. I was able to get the cheek weld, really, that I felt like was adequate. With the Benelli, you're going to get a little bit better. On the Benelli, they do have this gray Cerakote finish, and so we've got that here, and also you can get it in a black anodized finish. With the Panzer Arms, they do offer a fixed stock, and they offer a number of different color patterns on these, even camo patterns. So it gives you a lot of options. I love the ghost ring sights and this Picatinny rail. I can put a small red dot on it or a small scope. The front accessory rail here, this Picatinny, gives me a place for lights or lasers. Getting the additional 2 rounds gives you 7 rounds instead of 5. But any kind of upgrades that you want to make to this shotgun, you can do with Benelli parts or Benelli aftermarket M4 parts. And that makes this a very attractive semi-automatic shotgun option from Turkey. From what I understand, though, the Panzer Arms M4s are some of the best clones out there. And guys, I'll tell you, it is a very smooth shooting gun. You're not getting any kind of grit in the action. It's very reliable. And so overall, for $469, I mean, I feel like it's a really great price. Again, if you want to get into the Benelli M4 shotgun, and yet you just don't want to pay $2,000 for it. So guys, the Benelli M4, it's legendary. It's a proven design used by the U.S. Marine Corps, but the price tag is pretty steep. Bring in the Panzer Arms M4 and you're able to experience that whole reliability, the Argo gas system, the ghost ring sights, I mean, all the different features that are on a standard Benelli M4 for a much more reasonable price. And again, a big thank you to Nate over at Guns on Deals for sending the Benelli M4 for this review. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. And that's if the trigger is cocked. No. Of course, first thing we want to do is make sure to say this is the same quality as the Beretta. Is it up to the quality of the Beretta? Now, to remove the Argo gas system, okay, let's look at that first. Definitely, you know, definitely military type setup. It's on both sides of the shotgun. It's on both sides of the barrel. Okay. What the heck?